Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey, what's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 290. I'm Phil Graham. Today, I'm going to be sharing 5 Facebook and Instagram ad tests that we do that save us money, and they also make us money. Testing is such a big key to our success, and so many advertisers do not test properly. So today I'm going to be talking about some tests that you can do that should help you. And really the goal with these tests that you run when you're running ads is to reduce your CPMs, reduce the cost of ads. And you want to measure everything you're doing and create campaigns and ads that are more effective, that lead to better results, more sales, and can make you money. So that is the goal. That's what we do with our ad tests. And I want to share that with you guys and teach you today. If you're in the US, like I am, I hope you had a really great Thanksgiving. If you're somewhere where you didn't have Thanksgiving last week, I hope you had a great week anyway. And I hope you guys are in holiday mode, like it's full on holiday season. I love this time of year. Not only is it fun, but there's tons of opportunities when it comes to business, when it comes to running ads. And I'm also super excited about 2023. I've got a lot of fun, effective, amazing things coming up to share with you guys in the podcast next year as well. So it's a great time of year. Hope you guys are doing well. If you guys want to get in touch and you're looking for some one-on-one coaching so you can actually learn ads the right way, I love teaching this stuff. Or maybe you were looking for somebody to actually run your ads for you so you can do what you do best, and you want somebody you can trust. For either one of those things, you can reach out to me by going to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and let's connect. So as usual, I want to jump into the content quickly and give you guys value and keep this short and sweet and very actionable. So when it comes to running Facebook ads, my friends, most advertisers do not do things strategically. They just run some ads randomly and hope they work. Here's the thing, when you're running ads, everything, and I mean everything, should be strategic. You should always have a specific reason why you're doing something, and also everything should always be measured 100%. You should measure it. You should learn something from every single ad you run. And when I say learn something, I don't mean, oh, this didn't work. We learned it didn't work. I mean, if it didn't work, you need to know why. Even if it did work, you should always know why. You should never run an ad, get a result, and not know what caused that result to happen. That's very, very important. So just keep that in mind. Let's talk about how you should test, and then I'm going to share the 5 tests that I recommend you guys do. So in terms of how to test, when I'm testing, I only have one difference, one variable between 2 different things, 2 different campaigns or ad sets or ads or all of the above. But when I'm running a test, I'm going to run 2 things, and there's only going to be one variable between the 2. There's not going to be 10 different differences or anything like that, because if you have too many, you're not going to know why it didn't work or why it did work. But if there's only one variable, you will know for sure. Also, when I'm testing, the 2 things I'm testing, let's say I'm testing 2 ads, each ad is going to get its own budget, and it's going to get the same budget and reach as the other ad. So many people test in the wrong way, and I'll see one ad that has like a reach of 10,000 and another ad that has a reach of like 200, and they're trying to compare them against each other, and that's insane. You cannot do that. So to properly test, you need to give the same budget for each one that you're testing. So it's an apples to apples comparison. Also, you want to make sure that you let these run long enough to actually get good data, or else you're just going to be wasting your money. And I can't tell you how long to let them run because there's too many variables. I'd have to talk to you personally. We need to know what test you're running, how big the audience is, how much you're spending per day. Like there's a lot of factors. But in general, if you don't have a really large budget, then you should probably let it run for at least a couple weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then lastly, on how to test, make sure that you are relying on data and only data for the results, not comments, not what you think might be happening. You've got to dig into the data. And when you do that, you're setting yourself up for success when it comes to testing ads. Okay, so I'm going to share the 5 tests that I recommend you guys run. We do these a lot, and they have made us a lot of money because we do them. Test number 1 is to test the budget. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. One way I like to do is testing a lifetime budget versus a daily budget. Now, for most campaigns and most clients, we're running daily budgets. That's normally what I do. However, sometimes I will test a lifetime budget. So let's just say you've got a $10 a day budget on a specific ad. Well, what I would do is I would run an ad that's $10 a day. And let's say you run it for a week. That's, I think, $70 if my math is right. And then I would do another test where I would run that same ad, same everything. The only difference is I would give it a lifetime budget of $70 and a 7-day time frame to run in. And I would run that against one that's running daily. You can either run those together at the same time, or you can go 1 week with a daily budget and then the next week with a lifetime. And you want to compare the results. And you would think that it's going to be exactly the same because it's the same audience, it's the same ad copy. The only difference is how the budget is being utilized. But you'll be surprised, at least I am, that a lot of times one of them works better than the other. There's actually a difference. Not always, but sometimes there is. And so this is something you should definitely test. Another thing you can test when it comes to budget is testing higher ad set budgets. So let's say you're a lower spend advertiser. Maybe you don't have a ton of money to spend. And so you've got some lower dollar ad sets. Maybe they're $5 a day, $10, $15, $20 a day, which are considered lower spend. Well, what you want to do is, yes, you can kind of be running at $10, $15 a day, but one thing I would test is to test one ad set at a larger budget, even if it's for a week or a few days. So for example, let's say you typically run $10 ad sets. I would want to run a $25 or $30 ad set to test against the 10. Because here's what I think happens internally, and nobody knows this for sure because it's a scientific secret at Facebook. But here's what I believe happens when you're running ads to an audience and you're bidding and willing to spend $10 a day to reach this audience, for example. And let's say somebody else is willing to spend $30 a day to reach the audience. What I believe is that Facebook has an internal quality score, so to speak, for everyone on the planet, practically, because they know so much about you. They know what you do. They know when you do it. They know what you spend because they have your credit card data. They buy that. So they know a lot. And I think they know who's likely and who does buy things often and who doesn't. And so sometimes what I've seen is when we run ads with a higher ad set budget, I think it sometimes puts us in front of a so-called higher quality person or lead in the audience. Now, that's not always the case because we've had success with even $5 a day ad sets, although I don't recommend going that low in most cases. But it's definitely something you want to test. So if you're always just running a certain ad set or campaign budget and it's not a high one, I would test one time going higher and seeing if you get a different result. And that would be really interesting. So budget is the first thing you can test. Number 2, I definitely recommend testing your audiences. I've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast. I like to test broad, really large audiences versus segmented, much smaller audiences. And there's so many different ways you can test this. There's lookalikes, there's interests, there's demographics, there's behaviors, and then there's my favorite, which is stacking a few of these. But here's where you have to be careful. When you're testing these audiences and you use my stack method, I like to stack a couple different things. So for example, I pick a primary audience, whether that might be an interest audience or a lookalike audience, and then I stack on one demographic, and that could be like, it could be parents, it could be something else. Like there's a lot of different demographic options. And then I also stack one different behavior. So we've got a primary audience plus an interest plus a behavior. That creates what I call a stack. And that's a great thing to test. But what a lot of people do is they'll put like 10 interests in there or 15 or 20, and they'll put all kinds of different things in one ad or campaign. But the problem is, whether it works or not, you're not going to know why. You could have 20 interests in there, and if something's working, it might just be one or two of those that are really doing well, and the others are not, and you're not going to know which ones. And alternatively, a lot of times, if it's not working, it's a handful of those interests that might be causing the issue, but you might have a winner in there, and you have no idea because of the way you set it up. So you got to be careful. Don't test 50 million things at the same time. I like to choose one primary audience plus one demographic plus one behavior, and that's what I call my stack. And then I test that for a couple weeks. Then I would test it against another stack a few weeks later. Or if you have enough budget, you can do that at the same time. Plus, you can also test a lookalike against an interest audience, etc. So make sure when you're testing audiences, both large and small, against each other. And when you are testing audiences, for example, let's say you're testing two audiences against each other, make sure you're showing them the exact same ad, so that the only difference, the only variable is the audience, not the ad. And that's how you do it really effectively. So audiences are another great thing to test. Number 3, let's test creatives. So I like to test, one thing is images versus video, and then I measure what the CPM is, what our cost per thousand is. Sometimes the images will be much cheaper, and other times it's the video. But also I don't only look at CPM, because sometimes we can have a higher CPM, so it's more expensive, but it works better and we're getting more ROI. So you have to look at the whole picture too, not just CPMs. But I like testing images versus video when it comes to creatives. I also like testing headlines. I love testing hooks. That's one of my favorite and most frequent things I test, is the hook, which would be basically what you have at the beginning of the ad copy, and also could be what you say at the beginning of a video if you're creating a video, and it could even be incorporated into the headline. But whatever your hook is something that's very testable that we do a lot. And then also when it comes to creatives, the length of the creative. So long copy versus short copy. These are all good things to test. And you could test 100 more things when it comes to creatives. And there's a lot to talk about on this, but I just want to make sure you guys realize you should be testing these things. And when you do test them, let's say you're testing a headline, the way to do it is you're going to have two ads. They're going to have the exact same ad budget. You're going to make sure that each one has its own budget. They're going to have the exact same audience. They're going to have the exact same copy and the same image or video. The only difference would be one has one headline and the other one has the other headline. That's the only difference. And then you measure that and let it run long enough to get data. Same thing with all the other things we're testing. There's just one variable. Make sure you remember that. That's super important. But like I said, test your headline, test the hook, test long versus short copy, test image versus video, and you will learn so much. We have become so effective at this. It makes a huge difference when you're testing these creatives. Number 4, we've got ad objectives. Okay, so when it comes to objectives, there's a lot of great things that you can test. My favorite one typically is conversions, but there's a lot of other good ones. And sometimes the other ones work better That's why you need to test. So testing an objective means that you choose a different objective than the one you're currently running, and you send the exact same ad copy, same creative, same audience. The only difference is the objective is different. So you could test conversions against traffic or messages or lead ads or video views or reach. Those are all really good tests. You could test lead ads versus video views or messages versus traffic. There's a lot of cool things you can do. And even within like conversions, for example, you can optimize for purchases or just add to carts or page views. So there's things within that as well. So you want to make sure that you're testing these things. Now, these are lots of different things to test, and most of you probably can't test them all at once. So don't worry. Add these to your list. And as time goes on, test them one at a time if you have to. But make sure that you are testing ad objectives because it makes a big difference. Sometimes I'll take an ad that's just an average producer, it's doing decent, and I'll give it a different objective. And sometimes it'll do dramatically better. And I didn't even change anything except the objective. And other times I do that and it does worse or the same. In either case, I learn and I use that data to make better decisions. So objectives are definitely something you should be testing. And last but not least, my friends, you should definitely be testing placements, where you're placing your ads. So automatic placements is definitely my favorite and the one I use the most. However, there's some other placement strategies that I like to use at times. One of them is running ads that are story-only ads. So the only places that they go are Facebook and Instagram stories and reels. So that can be like a strategic placement test versus testing everything. Another test I'll do with placements, sometimes I'll just do mobile only and no desktop. So that's another test you can do. You can do just Facebook or just Instagram. There's a lot of different things. You want to do a breakdown too of the ad you're running and see if Facebook or Instagram is doing better than the other one. Because sometimes what'll happen is you'll see that one is doing better, but it's not getting a lot of the ad spend. So if that's the case, like pretend like you're running ads and let's say Instagram is crushing it in the breakdown. Facebook's not doing as well. Yet Instagram might only be getting 20% of your budget because you have it on automatic for placements. Well, you could take that same ad and do an Instagram only ad and give it 100% of the budget, and that would be another valid test. So testing placements is a really good strategy as well. So to recap, make sure you guys are testing budget, audiences, creatives, objectives, and placements. You're only having one variable that's different between each test, and you're letting them run long enough to get results and then using data to make good decisions. When you do this, my friends, you will stand out above the crowd and great things could happen. So my friends, episode 290 is in the books. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you want to get in touch, my website is philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.